Bowl games, playoff games, coaching changes, coordinator changes, and then the Chiron Moore situation, which is in a completely different category, almost unlike anything we've seen before. Wow. All right. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. It's the college football show that we feature here 6 times a week with all of you, the Late Night College Football Show. And leave those comments and questions there in the chat. We have left the link there for you, so please join the conversation. A lot to get to tonight. I'm going to serve up this question. Which lower seed? So we will go with the 12-team playoff. We'll go with the bottom 6 seeds, 7 through 12. The best chance of winning a national championship among the 7 through 12 seeds. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Those final 6 seeds, the bottom half of the bracket. Which team has the best chance of making an dark horse underdog run to win a national championship? So leave that selection there in the chat. I'll be interested to see if you believe that anyone has a chance. The real MVP, I believe, is saying 0%. Jim says slim and none. Smooth Criminal, agree. Wow. Everybody's just basically saying, no way, no way, no way. Not even going to offer up the possibility, not even going to offer up just a 1% chance for anyone. Okay. All right. And yes, Cheryl, the team up north is having big issues with their football program. So we'll see if they can salvage that, much like Penn State did. Much different situation at Penn State. Of course, they just fired their coach. That kind of happens on a regular basis in college football. Their coach, by their estimations, was underperforming. They fired the coach. So different situation, but Penn State had issues trying to replace James Franklin, but came up with Matt Campbell. We'll see what Michigan can do. I did post in the community page there. I believe I can follow through on that. I've been gone the entire day. I just walked in the door like 15 minutes ago. I've been gone all day. So I really don't know what's going on, but I did want to go through the news of the day because I saw that there were quite a few items to hit on. So we're going to go through the news of the day and we're going to take your calls, of course. And again, my question of the day is there a low seed that you believe is a dark horse? Which one of those 6 lowest seeds, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, has a shot to win the national championship? I am hearing no one. We would like to produce some videos here in the next few days, as I was just alluding to in a second ago on the community page. I listed that I was gathering a list of names as candidates for the Michigan head coaching position. I hope to be able to give some decent analysis to all of those names, type up the graphics, build a video, let you know where these guys have succeeded, where they're from, what they've done in the past, how they fit the Michigan system. Do I see them as a upgrade, a good fit? And I've collected like 20 names. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to produce the video to that extent because that might be one lengthy video. Maybe I'll divide it into current head coaches, former head coaches, current coordinators, and then NFL assistants. Maybe we'll do something like that. All right, one more time. Low seed, most likely to win the college football national championship. I'd also like to look at rematches and common opponents. So we've got a situation where we've got 2 rematches, which I believe is going to prove to be fairly uncommon going forward in the college football playoff. It's not going to be unheard of that there's a rematch in the first round. There are going to be rematches. Matt Zemek and I on Monday's show counted 5 possible rematches in the college football playoff. That would be the 2 that are scheduled, which are, of course, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Ole Miss and Tulane. We could see Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia Ole Miss is almost a certainty. Of course, if the Rebels win round one, they play Georgia. We could see Alabama, Georgia more than 5 or 6. I think no, this is what it was. We were looking at a particular reporter's prediction and their bracket, which had 4 rematches. And yeah, there could be a possibility of, there's about 12 to 14 different possibilities of rematches. All right, let's get to it. I will save the news to get to the calls. Don't want you guys to wait. So the call-in line is in the chat. Appreciate you being here. Since we just got cranked up, let those social media neighbors, those acquaintances out there know that we are here talking college football with all of you each and every night. First up, the real MVP on the line.
Hey, Mark, how you doing this evening?
Hey, real, doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Well, I was frankly shocked when I saw Moore's response to what happened, and now he's in jail. I mean, that's a sad situation for everybody that's happened there, but he made a bad situation and a bunch of dumb mistakes, and he somehow turned it based off of what I've seen. And I don't know what's true and what's not. I'm going to preference that, but he made it into a worse situation, and that's just so disheartening. And that tells me he should never be allowed to coach in any capacity ever again. He's just not a leader. He is somebody who cannot overcome adversity in a way that's acceptable in society if what I'm seeing out there is true.
So there's no question that he's not capable of that right now. He does not have the emotional and mental stability to do that, nor does he have the integrity, the values, the moral character to come anywhere close to leading young men and being in a position of authority. However, where you and I may differ, and I totally understand your point, the odds that he is ever going to arrive at a place where he has those values and those abilities and is able to be self-disciplined enough, first of all, not to engage in that kind of original behavior, the affair, and then to continue and to then make it a violent situation. Yeah, he's a long ways away from that. He needs a lot of help. I will say that I do not believe that anybody's beyond rehabilitation. Now, again, the odds are way, way against that being the case. And we shouldn't get it confused that because of the elevation of the position, that from an integrity standpoint, there needs to be any difference between him being able to and emotionally stable enough and mentally stable enough to coach a high school football team as much as the University of Michigan. Obviously, there are different expectations in terms of your ability as a football coach and a leader of men, but in terms of just being a functional human being that's healthy, he can't partake of any leadership role at all.
Right, and I'm a believer in forgiveness and second chances and all that stuff, but I'm also a practical human being and understand that I wouldn't want to put risk other people for his mental stability, because this is something that, like it or not, I think is going to affect him for the rest of his life, because if you're willing to snap this much and this hardcore, like, that's not something I just personally would let anybody to be around that could be influenced by him. Now, does that mean he needs to be cast away forever into the dark pits of the underworld? No, absolutely not. He can be forgiven by God and all that stuff, but I just don't think he should be ever in a role of being able to influence others again, because if you're able to snap once in this type of aggressive manner, and if I hired him and he snapped again, I personally would feel responsible. I don't know how everybody else feels, but that's just how I would feel.
So again, I'm not discounting anything that you say, and I generally agree with it. I'm just not there at the point to say there is a 100% certainty that he should not be able to. Now, who and at what point do you make that judgment that it's been long enough, he's received the type of counseling and whatever else he needs, he's paid the price. He's, we're light years away from that. But that he has shown the repentant attitude, and he has made amends, and he has walked a certain line for a long, long period of time to then be able to be given that chance. I don't have the answer for that. I am just not the person that's going to say that somebody can never do this again based on one incident. Now, we have criminals running around on the streets. My goodness, it seems like every couple of weeks I hear of some kind of criminal who does some heinous crime, typically against a child or against a female, and you find out that they've been in jail 73 times. I'm somewhat exaggerating. Other times I'm really not. Maybe 73 times that they have indictments against them. And no, those people should not be on the street. They so should they never ever be on the street? Well, it depends on the crime and so forth. And we could be here all night setting up certain examples. Again, we're too lenient in society. There's no question about that. We have some
Absolutely
big problems there. And to your point, I think what's considered to be considered, what's the most important consideration is not trying to punish this person forever. In a perfect world, if you could know and be guaranteed that they would never do anything harmful to anyone else, well, of course, you would still want them to justify their regret and to work and to show that they're in a better place. And then if you could put them back in the same position or a similar position, and you would guarantee that they wouldn't do anything, but that's not life. We all have freedom. So leaning way in the direction of the safety of the people, the children, the women in society, and in this case, the young men that would have to be under him, then that's what is most important and has to be most protected. Yes.
Absolutely, Mark. And this is just a very sad situation. I hope everybody gets through this as harmless as possible, because this could have really gone south quickly. I mean, I understand being fired and humiliated as a head football coach has got to be one of the hardest things to happen to somebody, to be humiliated at that level. But it's just a sad situation the way he handled it. And I hope the best for him. But Mark, there's other football news out there, thankfully, to talk about. Notre Dame is apparently getting the freeze treatment, which is absolutely what should happen to them. Notre Dame thinks they're better than everyone else. Notre Dame wants to get in the playoff because they're a top 12 seed, despite nobody else doing that. Just imagine if Alabama, Mark, they're a top 12 team. They're guaranteed to be in the playoff. That's just as lunacy as Notre Dame getting it because they're Notre Dame. It makes no logical sense. I want UConn to be also granted this privilege because they're independent, as I know, but this exemption only applies to Notre Dame for some reason. I hope everyone freezes them out. I hope they only play Navy, Army, Air Force, and a bunch of G5 teams, go to the American, be 12-0, and be left out of the playoff. That's the way I hope they're treated going forward.
So I've not looked into any of that. I'm well aware of what you're talking about in terms of their claim and what they want to have amended. What I have not heard is, have they given any, I'm not even going to say reasonable, but any reason why this should be granted to them?
No, it feels like, I think it's already been granted to them.
Okay.
Like
we'll have to look into that.
Yeah, next year, according to Ross Dellinger, I saw a report, there's a memorandum of understanding signed between the College Football Playoff Committee and Notre Dame. That way, if Notre Dame is ranked in the top 12 at the end of the season, I think it's at the end of the season, he worded it weird too, they'll be in the College Football Playoff. So if you had the exact same rankings this year, going forward a year, Miami would have been left out and Notre Dame would have been in because they're a top 12 team.
Here we go. AI is telling us that, yes, starting in 2026, Notre Dame is guaranteed a spot in the CFP if they finish the regular season ranked in the top 12, thanks to a new agreement they signed, ensuring that they won't get snubbed. Well, that's not getting snubbed. They're playing under the same rules as everyone else. Like in 2025, despite being highly ranked, just like anybody else could be highly ranked and knocked out by lower ranked group of 5 or conference champions. This means a top 12 finish, even without winning a conference title as an independent, secures them a playoff berth in the expanded format. I don't know how to respond to this. I was aware that they were bucking for this, but I just thought it was a completely hollow attempt that would never in any way be responded to favorably. I just discarded it as, oh, they're throwing this out there and they're going to, in desperation, try something like this, but there's no way that this is going to get approved. I don't know how to respond to this, except for this is completely, like you are outlining here, they're being treated different than everyone else.
Yeah, well, I think honestly there's an argument that this is rigged. This is legitimately rigging it in their favor because every other team can have this exact same guarantee. Why doesn't Ohio State get this? Why doesn't Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, a bunch of teams that have proven over the last 25 years that they're elite? This would be like Clemson getting a guarantee for being in the top 12. I mean, nobody should play Notre Dame. And I would hate this agreement if it was any team of any conference.
Sure, absolutely. Of course.
This isn't an SEC thing or a Big Ten thing. This is a fairness thing. This is legitimately degrading the integrity of the sport because Notre Dame is choosing not to be in a conference. Therefore, they should not get additional rewards that nobody else does.
So if this happened again in 2026, Miami was the last team in, they would be out.
Yeah, for Notre Dame, a team that Miami beat.
Yeah, this is insane because Notre Dame just has to finish in the top 12. Everybody else in America in what we would consider a normal year has to finish in the top 11, or in a season like this year have to finish in the top 10.
Right.
Yeah, I'm flabbergasted just because I don't know how to respond to it because it just shouldn't even involve me trying to explain why this is so egregious. It's just so incredibly unfair and egregious that it should not have to be explained to anyone. I would just invite anybody who wants to defend the Notre Dame side of this or the CFP's decision making in this more so. Again, this is just another bullet point to what I harp on concerning Notre Dame, and they got their way. I don't blame them. I don't think it's the right thing to do for anyone that has integrity and value that simply says, you know what, we could probably get away with that. We could push the envelope and get what we want, but based on fair competition and everyone being treated equally or as fairly as possible, we're not going to pursue that. But I'm not going to blame Notre Dame. I'm going to blame, again, the powers that be to allow Notre Dame to be treated differently, and it's unfair and it's pathetic. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just another shenanigan that you can list on college football's recent ledger as being, this is almost in some ways becoming a not serious sport.
Absolutely. I think there is contingencies if they expand the playoff, this goes away. So I kind of hope they expand the playoff just to get rid of this crap. Like, I hate the expanded playoffs. I think the expanded playoffs have absolutely ruined the sport beyond repair. I think the playoffs are just stupid, and I think we're getting a bunch of rematches and filler games. But I'll gladly expand to 16 if we get rid of these participation trophies, which is what Tulane, James Madison, the ACC, and Big 12 outside of Texas Tech are, and we get rid of Notre Dame being treated like a princess. I'll gladly make that trade in a heartbeat. Now, can 16 teams win the national championship in any year? No. But basically carving out 3 special exemptions and wasting 3 playoff spots every single year for teams that do not earn it on the football field is a joke.
I'm contemplating shooting a video on this, but I just don't even know. Usually it involves, point, counterpoint, pros and cons. Let me try to explain this to everyone so you understand this is my position and why it's my position. This is just so obvious that it's completely unfair to the rest of the country that I wouldn't even know what to say, except this is the news and it's obviously unfair. And this is just, it's a joke. It's a joke.
Right. It absolutely is a joke. And I mean, if you're I don't understand what Notre Dame man thinks they've done, what they have on people, or what their influence in the committee is that they can just absolutely get away with this and people to sign it. Like, the committee is so weak for doing this.
Yeah, and when the committee makes decisions like this, whether good or bad, or whether sensical or non, they should at least have to, and maybe they have, I will look for it, make a statement to justify the change and why the change was made.
Absolutely.
I don't know what they would possibly say in this
matter.
There
is nothing to say. It's nonsense. It's like somebody who believes the earth is flat. What can they say to make sense? They can't say anything because their position is nonsense from the start. I mean, it's just patently unfair what they're doing.
This is a stupid point I'm about to make, but this is the only thing I can come up with. But it makes, again, I can't come up with a sensible point that if they believe, let's say if it was unveiled, the conversation in that room and whatever voting procedures, and they basically had Notre Dame in a tie with Miami, like they so strongly felt like they're basically even. This is basically a coin flip. And they just had to obviously choose one because they only had one spot left. And this was somehow going to correct this. But obviously, as we well know, every college football season is played differently. And this does not impact this season's playoff. It starts next year. And there's going to be a different cast of characters vying for a 10th, 11th, 12th spot in the playoffs next year. Yeah, they will never be subjected to what Alabama and BYU were subjected to this year. And if you take account of what you hear with me on here every night to reel, and I appreciate you always being here and calling in, is I was even torn in the evaluation process of conference championship game losers, especially in the manner BYU and Alabama lost, because I don't think you can ignore anytime there's competition on the field, especially against the best team in the conference in a really meaningful game. I don't think you can just ignore that and say, well, that's not fair. But it's not fair to expose teams, and this year is BYU and Alabama, to another difficult game against one of the best teams in the country when they're competing for a spot against teams they could sit on their couch and just say, our resume rests, when most likely Notre Dame and Miami and some other teams would have been losing that same game against those same teams. But Notre Dame is automatically in that position every year where they can just sit on the couch and see other teams that have to be exposed to a 13th data point. Just, yeah.
Right. And to me, the hatred toward Alabama by a bunch of people for them wanting to be out of the playoff because they got humiliated by Georgia, those people and me just want to completely destroy the sport. Because Alabama's resume is so significantly better than Notre Dame and Miami. It's not even comparable, honestly. Like, their resume, the only thing holding them back is they lost Oklahoma head-to-head. they didn't lose that game head to head and they were 10-2. They probably should be 7 or 6 in the country ahead of Oregon and teams like that ahead of them. So, and they're 6 in the country in strength of schedule, their strength of record's elite, game control, all that stuff's elite. But people just think, oh, recency bias and all that stuff for Alabama. And this goes to the final thing I'll ask is, Mark, the team most likely to win the national championship, that is the 6 lowest seeds, which is 8 through 12, would be Alabama. They're the only correct option. They're favored by 1.5 against Oklahoma. Indiana, they're only 7-point underdogs. Alabama's by far the most talented and capable team. They have the highest of highs, which is beating Georgia. Their path in terms, think about this. For the first 2 games, they're going to be the most talented team. What other team 9 through 12 has that advantage? None of them do. Miami, Texas A&M's drawing dead because they have to play each other, then Ohio State, then Georgia to make the national championship game. Those 7-10's got the hardest path. 11-12 has the hardest path. They're out of it because they're a group of 6 teams. So it's between Oklahoma and Alabama. Alabama's favored, so Alabama deserves the nod.
God bless our Miami fans that show up for our show every Wednesday night. They are just, I know that they're giddy and happy and overjoyed that things worked their way and they finally had a decent season and went to a playoff and everything. But my goodness, when they got off to a 5 or 6-0 start, they were asking me who Miami should play in the national championship game. And now that they've made the playoff, they're assuming they're beating Texas A&M. Like, that game doesn't even need to be played. And, they're calling for Ohio State's heads. And it's humorous to listen to. I'm not saying that they can't beat Ohio State. They can on a given Saturday. They have the capability to beat Ohio State. But obviously we know
there's like a 90-10 discrepancy between Miami and Ohio State, in my opinion.
But just from where they're coming from, it's like they can't just stay in their lane and, be happy that you're in the playoff. No. Try to win the first game first before you start calling out the elites, the very elites of the sport. And I'm looking at like 3 schools, like Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, before you start calling out these schools that win all the time and have won more meaningful games in the last year than you have in 25 years. Just, pipe down, just rein it in a little bit.
Well, they're like Tennessee fans. They haven't touched elite in such a long time. They don't know what elite is. But Mark, if you want to see this sport completely destroyed and everybody upset, I'm telling you, this isn't off the board. Alabama still can make the semifinals or the national championship game. I know they haven't looked good the last month. But Mark, think about how Alabama's played the last month, who they've lost to, how ugly. They would only be 7 points in Indiana. An Indiana team that beat Ohio State. I'm telling you, it's not out of the realm of possibility Alabama beats Indiana in a neutral site game. And if that happens, and you have a 10-3 team beat a 13-0 team, the 13-0 team just 3 years ago we would have called a Cinderella team. Is people still going to want the playoffs to be expanded? Is that what everybody wanted? I'm just making sure, because Alabama might be the Cinderella team this year that makes the national championship game.
They could be. Part of me would love to see it, but I've seen Alabama win too much in the past. If it was anybody else, I would love to see it. But just because I get some amusement out of people that are automatically just throwing dirt on teams at arbitrary times. Yeah, they would be the team that has the most talent in the roster. I think Miami's playing the best football right now. Of course, Oklahoma, if they could find some semblance of offense, that defense is really, they have a national championship caliber defense, and there may only be about 4 other teams that can make that claim. But man, they just are so average at running back, wide receiver. They don't throw it well. Yeah.
Yeah, Mark, I'm telling you. I just can't wait for that Alabama-Indiana game, because I think Alabama's significantly better than Oklahoma, despite Oklahoma beating Alabama.
Okay.
Alabama, I think, against Indiana, I do I think Alabama might win that football game. I think Ty Simpson, I think it's been out there that he was hurt against Georgia, significantly hurt, and they played him anyway for some reason that made no logical sense. So I'm telling you, it's going to get ugly if Alabama beats Indiana. Like, it's going to be real. It's going to be the ugliest it's been for college football fandom since the 2023 FSU decision. I think it'll be even more ugly than Notre Dame and their irrational fandom. So I'm just preparing you for it ahead of time.
Bring it on. I will love to hear it. Again, if it was anybody else but Alabama because they won so much, I would love to see a team that's received so much ridicule. And like you, I was on the Miami show the other night, and to their credit, I didn't check the chat. I can only imagine what they were saying about me when I said the same thing you just said. I said, I believe Miami should be in the playoff, and Notre Dame should be ranked below Miami. I went through all that as I have every week, but I simply said, because the Alabama comments just started to roll, and I said, let's pull up the wins. Let's pull up the wins. They're not comparable. We're talking about a team that beat 12-1 Georgia, 10-2 Vandy. What am I missing? 8-4 Mizzou, 8-4
Tennessee, LSU.
LSU. Just the string of wins is not comparable to, well above the other two we're talking about. Yeah.
Right. Because people were upset that Alabama even made the playoffs because they hate the SEC and they hate Alabama. So if they go beat the Golden Boy in Indiana, Mark, I think everybody's going to really reevaluate of what they've done with this expanded playoff. I've always been against expanded playoffs because of a situation like this. I always think if you want to be the best, you have to prove it over the course of the regular season. I think Cincinnati in 2020 did that extremely well, and TCU and recently has also done that. But nope, we could have had an Indiana-Georgia national championship game, and everybody, I think, would have been happy. But Mark, we got these mediocre games that's going to happen, and I think Alabama's going to shock the world. So I'll get off and enjoy the rest of the show.